everyone, in this video I'm continuing on with my Stray Bullets coverage and I'll be breaking down volume 3, Other People. Now, we're still going to follow the adventures of Beth and Virginia and see where they go after the fallout of last volume, but we are also going to be introduced to a whole bunch of other people and get sucked into their lives too. Now, this volume deals with a lot of romance and people cheating on their spouses and affairs and sex. So it's quite interesting in that regard and quite fun. All right, let's dive into it. Volume 3. Stray Bullets, Volume 3. Other People. Written and drawn by David Lapham. Stray Bullets, Issue 15. Sex and Violence. Part 1. It is March 1984. 5 months since the events of Issue 14. When Nina, Orson, as well as Spanish Scott died, and Virginia and Beth decided to finally leave the town of Seaside and move on. They have now settled in Los Angeles, California. Beth and Virginia are now living together. Virginia Applejack is 13 years old and Beth is about 22. On this particular night, Beth returns to the apartment with a man she picked up at a bar named Ricky Fish. Beth and Ricky, they make out and hang out on the couch, while Virginia stays in a room. Virginia, growing annoyed that Beth isn't paying attention to her though, knocks over a bookcase in her bedroom, and it makes a loud, crashing noise. Beth, she runs to the bedroom to check on Virginia, and Virginia is just sitting there casually. Virginia attempts to converse with Beth, but Beth just replies, "I don't want to hear shit, Amy. Not a goddamn sound. Didn't we have an agreement?" What's interesting is that Beth is referring to Virginia as Amy. Years ago when they first met, Virginia told Beth her name was Amy and she has not corrected her. Virginia uses Amy as her fake name because she is inspired by her literary alter ego, Amy Racecar. Ricky Fish asks Beth, "Is everything okay? Hey, who's this? I didn't know you had a kid." Beth responds, "Do I look old enough to have a kid that big? She's my, sister. Her parents are dead, so I take care of her. You got a problem with that?" Ricky says, no. Later on in the morning, Beth and Virginia argue. Beth tells Virginia, "You really messed things up for me last night, kid." Virginia quips back, "Yeah, well, he was a jerk anyway." Beth claims her dealings with Ricky were strictly business, and Virginia messed it up for her. Beth, she then yells, "What are you, the morals police? I don't ask much of you, do I? I don't make you go to school. I buy you all the crap you want. How do you think I pay for all this?" Virginia says, "With Orson and Nina's money." Beth continues yelling, "You little shit. Don't play that card on me. I was a lot closer to them than you. I don't give a damn if you understand you do it because I tell you to." They argue some more and eventually Beth has to leave. She says, "I'm going out. You clean up and rearrange your attitude by the time I get home." Virginia, not one to bow down to authority, decides to bounce. She then goes and hangs out with some kids her age. They smoke some cigarettes and act tough. A little derpy kid named Bobby then runs over to them. The boys that Virginia was hanging out with beat Bobby up. Bobby, he then yells, "Wait, help, stop, don't. I have something to show you guys." Virginia, interested, asks, "What?" Bobby, he pulls out a little Ziploc bag of cocaine. He says it's coke and he took it from his uncle's stash. The other kids, they're not even sure what cocaine really is. But Virginia, she's seen cocaine before. She snatches the bag, inspects it, and says, "It's real." The kids ask Bobby, "Are you gonna try it?" Bobby claims he already did. He ran all the way here from his grandma's. The other kids say, well, then they want some too. But Virginia stops them saying, "Hey, I know a guy who will give us maybe like $100 for this stuff." The other kids decide, oh, well then let's do that then. They push Bobby to the ground and they run away with his cocaine. They then head to a record store where Virginia sells it to the guy behind the counter for the $100, which Virginia kept $50 for herself. Afterwards, she went back to check in on Bobby. She asked him, "What are you doing here?" Bobby answers, "I'm just sitting." Virginia replies, "Relax. Hey, are you afraid of me?" Bobby answers, "No." Virginia questions, "You want to make a fire?" Virginia, she then asks Bobby, "So, shouldn't you be in school?" Bobby answers, "My parents went down to San Diego to visit friends of theirs. I'm staying at my grandma's." Virginia then asks, "So there's nobody at your house?" "Hey, you have an Atari?" So soon Virginia and Bobby go back to Bobby's house, which is empty, and they play Atari. After they play Atari for a bit, they go into the bedroom, where Bobby shows Virginia some of his comic books. He's telling Virginia all about the recent Frank Miller Daredevil comics, where Bullseye and Daredevil fight. Then Bobby shows Virginia his dad's collection of Playboys. Virginia and Bobby, they hang out for a few hours. Eventually, Virginia asks, "So, can I, crash here for a couple days?" Bobby says, My parents will be gone till Sunday night. I'm supposed to stay at my grandma's, but you can stay here. But when they get home, you'll have to hide. Maybe in the basement?" So eventually, Bobby went to his grandma's, and Virginia stayed there for a few days. And it was bliss, the whole home to herself. But eventually, Bobby's parents came home about a day early. Bobby's parents are Benny and Janet McGraw. Since they are home a day early and Bobby's staying at the grandma's for another day, they decide to maybe take this opportunity to make love without Bobby around. So they start flirting. Benny makes a growl noise, rawr, and then they head into the bedroom. At first, Benny and Janet seemed like a pretty happy couple, but soon they start arguing. Janet, I assume, dressed up in some sort of sexy outfit, and Benny did not like it. He said, "You look like a whore. If I wanted a whore, I'd go to Hollywood Boulevard." Janet angrily replied, "Fine, Benny, you turn out the lights. I'll just lay here under the covers. Wake me up when you're done." They start yelling pretty loud, and eventually Benny leaves the bedroom and storms off. He narrowly misses Virginia. Virginia is still managing to stay hidden. She quickly retreats to the basement to hide out there. And the next day, Bobby comes home. Virginia is now hiding out in the basement, and Bobby comes down to check on her every so often and hang out. One day, Bobby shows her some of his comic books as well as some of his sketch drawings. Bobby wants to draw comics of his own one day. Virginia asks Bobby, "Oh, I have a character I write stories about. Her name's Amy. Could you draw her?" Bobby, puzzled, asks, "But that's your name." Virginia answers, "Amy's not my real name. I just use it to hide my real identity." Bobby questions, "Well, then what is your real name?" Virginia replies, "If I say, you can't tell anybody. My dad's afraid if people knew who I was, I'd be kidnapped." Bobby, he says, "I won't tell, I swear. What is it?" Virginia thinks of another fake name and answers, "Katerina Lucy von Romanoff." Under Virginia's direction, Bobby eventually draws Amy Racecar. Bobby, he then says to Virginia, "Hey, we should make our own comic. We could get rich." Virginia replies, "No way. I wouldn't make my stories into comics. They're too important. Words are beautiful. They reveal the character's inner soul. Comics are just silly." Bobby, offended, says, "Or not." Anyway, they argue and kid around a bit, and eventually the night passes. Virginia, she ends up staying down there all week. She was hoping that she would have the house to herself for a few hours a day. Benny, he would go to work, but the wife, Janet, she was just a stay-at-home housewife, so she barely left the house. And as Virginia stayed down in the basement, she would hear all of the male suitors that Janet would have throughout the week. On Monday, the grocery delivery guy came over with some groceries, and then Janet and him got along. On Tuesday, the gardener came, and Janet and him got along. On Wednesday, there was some other guy that would have a gag in his mouth. On Thursday, there was some guy named Hank. On Friday, she had a threesome with a guy named Jermaine and his friend. Janet sure was busy. On Friday, Bobby came to check in on Amy. He told her that he had to go stay at his grandma's again this weekend. Virginia says that she should probably get going soon anyway. Bobby says that if Virginia needs more money, he can get some more coke from his uncle. But Virginia tells Bobby, "No, I want you to stay away from that stuff. It's dangerous and bad. I mean it, Bobby. I'll kill you myself." Bobby replies, Okay. Bobby, he then asks, "Oh, there was some lady asking around for you. I guess it was your sister? She had a picture of you and stuff." Virginia, assuming it was Beth, asks, "Was she mad?" Bobby answers, "Yeah, I guess. She was so mad she was crying too. She asked me, but I said I never saw you. I lied real good. She bought it." Later on, it was finally time for Virginia to leave. She was just waiting for an opportunity, and eventually it presented itself. Janet was having another affair with a man named Alex, and while they were getting it on, Virginia went to crawl out the little window in the bottom of the basement. Only when she crawled outside, she saw this Alex there. Alex and Janet were doing some sort of bondage play, and Alex had a leash around his neck, which Janet playfully pulled. Janet then said, "You're a very bad boy, Alex, very bad. Now crawl over here for your punishment." Virginia's opening had closed, so she had to retreat to the basement and wait a while longer. At some point, though, Janet sent Alex down to the basement. Still a part of their fantasy play. She threw a bucket of soapy water down on him and told him to clean, dog. Don't you talk back to me, don't you dare. As Alex was down in the basement, being demeaned and cleaning, he eventually saw Virginia down there. Virginia threatened to kill Alex, saying, "Don't speak, don't say anything or I'll cut you ear to ear." Alex, he did not say anything. He pretended he never saw Virginia, and he went back upstairs. At some point, Virginia, she snuck up the stairs and was going to escape through the front door. But, oh no, Benny, the husband, came home. So Virginia had to hide some more. But Benny, he now caught his wife Janet with this Alex guy. All of a sudden, they all start yelling. Benny, upset, says, "Disgusting! Get the hell out of my house! Bitch, I'll kill you both!" Benny starts attacking Alex. Alex tries to get down to the basement, but Virginia refuses to let him in. Eventually, Virginia goes down into the basement and tries the basement window again. She climbs out that and gets outside. But then she continues to see Benny beating his wife as well as Alex. He has a whip, and he is whipping Alex and telling his wife, "You want to act like a dog? I'll treat you like a dog." Alex, he then grabs a rake, and him and Benny are fighting. And then in the course of the fighting, Benny falls near the basement window and is face to face with Virginia. And they do not know who the hell she is, but they are concerned. Janet says, she's seen everything. Virginia says, "I didn't see nothing." Janet continues, she'll tell them what happened. Oh my God. Benny says, "Shut up, let me think." Benny then adds, "She's probably just a street kid, a runaway. Nobody would miss her." So as things are getting dark and Benny starts contemplating perhaps killing Virginia, all of a sudden, Beth walks by. She pops right into the backyard and says, "Excuse me, I believe this is mine." She then grabs Virginia and pulls her up. She then says, "You know, kids these days, stuck in the darndest of places. When I was a kid, I got stuck in a hollowed out tree like Winnie the Pooh. I was stuck for 2 hours. Felt like 2 years. Anyway, thanks for looking after her. Go back to whatever you were doing. Bye." Beth then escorts Virginia away. And as Virginia and Beth walk home, Virginia asks, "Bobby gave me up?" Beth answers, "Don't go too hard on him. He's still hanging by his feet over at your secret hangout. Now keep quiet and keep walking. We'll talk later. You know, this is why I tell you you can have friends over, but I don't want you sleeping at their houses." Stray Bullets, issue 16, 2-week vacation. This issue is set in February 1983, 13 months before the events of the previous issue. A man named Hank is walking home from the store with a whole bunch of groceries in his arms. He steps onto the street and a car almost runs him over, and Hank drops all of his groceries. In a fit of rage, Hank grabs one of his wine bottles that broke and fell to the street, and he chucks it at the car that almost hit him. The wine bottle smashed the back windshield of that car, and that car then slammed the brakes. And outside of the car walks a tough, huge-looking black man. All of a sudden, Hank's like, "Oh shit." Hank, he starts running. He runs to a nearby apartment. He goes up the stairs. He hits all the buzzers, waiting for anybody to let him in. He yells, "Help!" The tough black guy approaches him, saying, "Man, that was the worst thing you ever done." Hank begs and says, "Look, I'm sorry, just stop. Don't come any closer. I'll make it right. I'll pay for the car." The angry driver then walks over to Hank and punches him in the belly. Hank, forced to defend himself, somehow manages to push the angry driver back, and he makes the guy fall over a railing. And the angry driver tumbles off that railing, falls to the floor below, hits his head on some steps, and dies. The ever-milquetoast, normal guy, civilian Hank just killed a man in self-defense. Hank, he decides to casually just walk away. At first, Hank is in shock, but then, all of a sudden, something just flips in his brain. He survived death tonight. Hank starts feeling that life's too short. He's got to start living, stop being scared of embarrassing himself, and live life to the fullest. When Hank arrives back at his apartment, his wife Lorraine is there, as well as many of Hank's friends. Two of those friends we met last issue. There is Benny and Janet McGraw. Hank's wife Lorraine, as well as many of Hank's friends, always saw him as kind of a pushover. Kind of a man that didn't have confidence, who was scared, but on this night, Hank is all of a sudden the life of the party. Hank's wife Lorraine, who is upset that Hank was late, says, "The party's already started, Hank. We've been waiting on you. You're late. And you were supposed to bring that wine I called you to remind you about." Hank just kisses his wife and says, "I'm sorry, Snookums, I forgot. There's some beer in the fridge." Lorraine continues, "What about my martinis? This is a cocktail party. I told everyone we were going to make martinis." Normally, Hank would let his wife kind of push him around, but this night he says, "Who needs it? I'm sure Herb's got a little weed on him if you want to loosen up." As the party progresses, Hank is laughing, cracking jokes, and just talking to everyone. One of the women at the party says to Lorraine, "What have you been feeding Hank? I've never seen him so lively before." As the night goes on, Hank, he smokes some weed, they play some charades, he makes everyone laugh. And at some point, as the party is winding down, Hank is sitting beside Janet McGraw. Now, at this point in time, because remember, we're about 10 months before last issue. At this point in time, Janet isn't the whore that we know her as. She's not sleeping around as much. But perhaps this is when it all started. So at this party, Hank sits beside Janet and tells her, "I'd really like to have sex with you." Janet, shocked, says, "What?" Hank says, "I don't want you to leave your husband or anything like that. It's just that, well, damn, you look so good, and I haven't been laid in 6 months." All of a sudden, in the middle of that party, where they're alone there, they kiss. A moment later, Janet's husband, Benny, begins to walk in. Hank and Janet separate, but Janet tells Hank, "Monday afternoon, my house." Monday afternoon rolls around. Hank, he skips out on work and goes to Janet's house to get lucky. Janet tells Hank, "Oh, Hank, I'm sorry, I forgot, I didn't realize the time. Bobby's home from school with the flu. I've been up with him since 2. Come in." Hank tells Janet, "Maybe this is a bad time." Janet says, No, the medication zonks him out. He should be asleep for hours." Hank and Janet go into the kitchen. They talk. Janet tells Hank, I bought some new underwear." Hank tells her, "You really look great." Janet says, "Thanks. So, how's your day been?" Hank replies, "I didn't even go into the office. I was so excited for this." Janet asks, "If you don't mind me asking, why did you ask me?" Hank replies, "I don't know. I thought it would be fun." They clink drinks and start making out, but then Janet's son Bobby, who's sick, yells, "Mommy!" Janet has to leave and go tend to her boy. She comes back moments later saying sorry, he urinated all over his sheets, the poor boy. Hank tells her, "Look, if you gotta take care of him, I understand." Janet says, "Follow me." They go to the bedroom. She tells Hank, "We'll be safer in here." Hank, looking at the bed, says, "Oh, this is where you and Benny do it." Janet says, "Oh, I didn't even think about that. We could go into the guest room if you're more comfortable." Hank laughs, saying, No, I love to do it in the old boy's bed." They're about to start making love once again, but Janet gets interrupted by Bobby and she has to go take care of him. Janet, she eventually comes back to the bedroom, and then she changes into a more sexy outfit. While Janet's changing, Hank tells her, "I can't tell you how relaxed I feel. You know, all my life I've been scared of everything. Other people, embarrassment. I thought it would go away. Like magic. I would gain experience and confidence would come." Janet tells him, "You were pretty confident the other night when you puffed that joint. I thought your wife Lorraine was gonna bust a gasket." Hank, he tells her, "You know, last year I had to give a speech on productivity and efficiency at our big convention in Tampa. I told myself, I'm good at this. I know this. Just get up there and it'll be okay. I got to the podium and I froze stiff. I didn't say a word for minutes. Lorraine had to come and get me off the stage. But I proved to myself a few nights ago that it doesn't get any easier or better. You can be a scared loser forever, and that's what I was. But something happened the other night that changed my whole outlook on life." Janet questions, "What happened?" Hank answers, "It's not important. But what was important was the result. What the hell is there to be afraid of? I'm the master of my life. I'm gonna get out there and do things because I'll tell you, Janet, they can kill you tomorrow. You only get one life, so you gotta live it to the fullest. Janet finally finished getting ready. She sits on the bed and Hank jumps on her. They begin making out, but then Bobby yells out for his mom again. Mommy! Janet, embarrassed, wearing this sexy outfit, not wanting Bobby to see her having an affair, says, Bobby, don't move! Don't move a muscle, young man! Janet opens the bedroom door and sees her son crying. She says, what the hell do you want now? Bobby says, I'm thirsty. I want some ginger ale. Janet responds, well, so am I, Bobby. Did you ever think maybe mommy's thirsty too? Maybe I like ginger ale. It's not all yours, you know. I bought it with daddy's money, and I drank it all. Now, mommy put some water next to your bed. You can drink that. And stay in your room, or I'll make you go to school tomorrow. Once Bobby leaves the bedroom, Janet says, oh my God, look at me. Now I'm abusing my kid. I don't know. Maybe we should call this off. Hank asks, you don't want to do it? Janet says, I do, but Hank just pulls her into the closet. And then they begin making out, and they finally get to it. As the days go by, Hank continues being very adventurous. He starts going to strip clubs regularly, and he lies to his wife about it. And as the weeks crawl by, Lorraine gets very suspicious that Hank is cheating on her. She starts sniffing his clothes, smelling the perfume of other women on them. Soon, the strip clubs aren't enough for Hank, so he starts hiring prostitutes. After one of his prostitute escapades, he tells the woman, you know, you're my 5th hooker this week. The first one was great. It was dangerous and exciting. The second one was the first black girl I had, and that was pretty neat, only she talked too much. You don't seem to have that problem, though. And then I had an Asian girl, and yesterday a redhead, but the appeal is kind of worn off, I guess. It's not as good as I thought it'd be. There's no more fireworks, you know? Maybe I need to spicing things up a bit. How about some cocaine? You ever do cocaine? The prostitute enthusiastically says, yeah. She was uninterested before, but with the promise of cocaine, she is willing to enthusiastically have another go with Hank. She hops back into the bed with him, and they're gonna start making love once again. Hank, he then asks, all right, so where can we get some cocaine? The prostitute says, you don't got none? Hank says, how would I know where to get cocaine? You're the hooker. That line made me laugh. You're the hooker. The prostitute, she tosses Hank aside and says, you teasing bastard. The days and weeks continue to go by, and Hank, he continues to feel a little bit lost in life. But one day at the strip club, he meets a girl named Amelia, and she is just so beautiful. Hank immediately falls in love with her. They fool around that night, and the next day they're lying in a hotel room, and Amelia is telling Hank, you're such a good man. There aren't many like you, and the ones that are already married. That's my luck. You know, the stories you told me about your wife, Hank, they make me sick. Where does she get off? She should treat you like a king. Hank tells her, believe me, Amelia, I'm no king. Most days I barely measure up to a mouse. Amelia tells Hank that's because of her. If she were more supportive, you could rule the universe. It takes a good woman to make a good man. The next day, Hank is over at Janet's house. They're having another session. Hank confides in Janet that he's going to leave Lorraine and ask this Amelia woman to marry him. Janet tells Hank, Lorraine has always been a bitch, but this is happening awfully fast. Are you sure this Amelia woman feels the same way? Hank answers, I think so. I'm gonna see her later. Later that day, Hank is hanging out once again with Amelia. He tells Amelia that he's gonna leave his wife for her. He says, I married a domineering bitch because I was afraid to make any decisions on my own, but then I met you and everything, the moon, the stars, they all clicked into place. Amelia says, for me too, Hank. Hank continues, you liberated me. You freed my soul. I'll make you happy, dearest, I swear. Amelia crying says, oh, Hank. Hank replies, oh, Amelia. They kiss passionately. Amelia asks, how are you going to tell her? Hank says, very slowly, I'm going to walk out that door on top of the world. That witch is going to know exactly what she's missing. Later that night, Hank and Lorraine are fighting. Lorraine accuses Hank of cheating on her. Hank, rather than come clean with his wife, though, sort of starts begging for her forgiveness and spinning all sorts of lies. He says his clothes smelled like perfume because he was buying an expensive gift for her. He gives her some Chanel No. 5. He's also been missing work because he had an ulcer and was going to the doctor. Lorraine is skeptical, but when she sees the gift for her, she decides to give Hank a chance. And Hank wins her over, and they make love that night. And while they're making love, Lorraine is giving Hank all sorts of instructions on how to please her. And Hank, he is going all out. He is trying his hardest to give Lorraine a good time. When they are done, Lorraine tells Hank, "Oh, that was marvelous. You haven't taken direction that well since college." Well, it turns out Hank only wanted to give Lorraine such a good time so that when he broke up with her right now, she would know what she was missing. Hank tells Lorraine, "You really like taking me down a peg, don't ya? For 12 years, you've made me think small, act small, and be small. I'm just glad you finally realize what you've been missing." As Hank is about to drop the bomb and break up with Lorraine, all of a sudden the phone rings. Hank picks it up. It is Amelia on the line. And she breaks up with Hank saying, "Listen, Hank, I just don't think it's going to work out." All of a sudden, Hank goes into shock. He was just about to break it up with his wife, and now this woman, Amelia, is dumping him? Hank says, "What do you mean? I need to see you. Let's talk about this." Amelia responds, "No, I don't think I could do this if I saw you, darling. Please understand. I couldn't live with myself if I broke up your marriage. What kind of person would I be? What kind of person would you be if I let you? Certainly not the man I fell in love with. Don't you see? It's perfect right now. Let's not corrupt it. We have to end it. Goodbye, darling." She then hangs up the phone. Lorraine, looking at Hank, says, "What the hell was that about? You're as white as a sheet. You're acting very funny, Hank. You better tell me what this is all about." Hank, in shock, says, "I can't." And then all of a sudden, Hank retreats back into his unconfident persona. He says, "They want me to make another speech at the convention next month." Hank, he becomes submissive once again, and his wife watches over him and says, "Is that all? Honestly, Hank, you make such a big deal out of nothing." There, it's gonna be all right. Don't worry about it. Right now, Pookie, just close your eyes. Shh. It's going to be fine. Stray Bullets issue 17, While Ricky Fish Was Sleeping. This issue is set in January of 1982, about a year before the events of last issue and 2 years before the events of issue 15. Ricky Fish returns to his apartment. He is a character we saw seemingly dating back in issue 15. Well, this is 2 years before that. Ricky returns to his apartment and passes out after a night of drinking. His young 27-year-old wife, Kathy, takes care of him. Although soon there is a knock at the door. At the door are 3 people. One of them is a cop named Roger, and there is a man named Puncher, aka Eli, and a woman named Lola. They were apparently drinking that night at the bar with Ricky. And they were all a little bit wasted. Eventually, Roger, Puncher, and Lola force their way inside the apartment. Kathy is very concerned. She says, "Get out of my house." Roger tells her, "Relax." They demand to talk with Ricky, but Ricky is passed out. Roger tells Kathy to make some coffee. She does. Later on, they try to pour the coffee down Ricky's throat, but Ricky still does not wake up. As the night goes on, Roger eventually tells the story to Kathy why they are here. Ricky owes them money. He ran up a $350 tab. Well, when it's time to leave, he's only got about $70. So Roger and Puncher had to shell out the rest. Kathy says, "So Ricky owes you almost $300? Roger explains, "Well, no. Ricky, he then said, how about double or nothing, that I can name the capitals of all 50 states. Kathy, she says, "Oh God, he's been helping her daughter Janie learn them." So anyway, Roger says that he took Ricky up on his bet, and Ricky started naming all the states, but then he screwed up. Got through 49, but then he screwed up Pierre, South Dakota. So here we are now to collect the money. Kathy says she doesn't have that kind of money, but she'll go to the bedroom and scrounge up what she can. Later on, she gathers some cash and then she gives it to Roger. But Roger, he's having a change of heart. He says, "Keep it. We're gonna call it a night." Roger, He has become a little infatuated with Kathy. He finds her so beautiful, and he finds Ricky undeserving of a good woman like her. Roger starts talking with Kathy more seriously. Kathy starts crying about her relationship. Roger says that she deserves a man that'll treat her better. Eventually, Roger tries to kiss Kathy. Kathy just slaps him in the face. Roger takes it fine, though, and says, I'm sorry. Hey, things will look better in the morning. Soon enough, Roger and the others leave the apartment and leave Kathy alone. Once everyone is gone, Roger, he comes back for a moment. He tells Kathy, hey, think I forgot my keys. Kathy says, really? Roger says, no. We really had a lot to drink, and I think I'm just gonna go back to my lonely little apartment now and sleep it off. Good night. Kathy, she then goes and lies by Ricky in bed. In the morning, Ricky, finally awake, talks with his wife. Kathy tells him, your friends came up here last night. They wanted their money. I don't have that kind of money. Ricky answers, is that why you're mad? Look, I'll ask Vince for a couple extra hours of shifts until I can make it up. I guess I'm gonna have to teach Janie her capitals better. Hey, we're all right? They didn't get rough with you or try anything, right? You know how cops can get, they're all power mad. Kathy says they all came up Ricky, all of them. It's clear from the conversation last night and Ricky's attitude now that Ricky was also talking to some girls last night and probably was regularly cheating on Kathy. Ricky says, look, honey, I'm sorry. I met those guys. We were drinking and there were just these girls there. It wasn't anything. Kathy responds, it never is. How come every time we fight, you come home drunk with some woman? Kathy eventually tells Ricky, you're not worth it. Don't come back here tonight. And that was that. They were broken up. On Saturday night, Ricky went down to the bar once again, and Roger, Puncher, and Lola were there too. Ricky tells them that Kathy kicked him out. He doesn't know what he's gonna do. Roger, hearing Ricky's sob story, says, you don't deserve a woman like that. A piece of scum like you should be locked up. I'm glad she kicked you out. Ricky, angry, says, what's that supposed to mean, pal? Roger, a little drunk, says, it means you had a real peach and you treated her like a piece of trash. I'm glad she got rid of you. I only hope she's got sense enough to stay away and find somebody that can make her happy. Ricky, drunk, says, who? You mean you? Roger says, I'd treat her right. Ricky threatens, you get anywhere near her, cop or no cop. Roger takes his badge out, slams it on the counter, moves it away. And then him and Ricky fight. The fight goes pretty crazy. It's all around the bar. They're knocking down chairs and tables, tackling each other through things. At one point, Ricky pulls out a knife. Roger, he pulls out his gun, and he laughs, saying, ain't so tough now, huh? What's that line, boy, about bringing a knife to a gunfight? Roger, he then stands up and shoots the gun into the ceiling. Ricky, he then runs. Roger, he yells, where do you think you're going? I'm gonna kill you, Ricky boy. I swear I'm gonna kill you so dead they won't even remember your name. Eventually, Ricky runs and escapes. 3 days later, Roger, now not drunk, arrives back to Kathy's apartment. He felt that they shared a moment and he really likes her and he wants to talk with her. He knocks on the door, Kathy opens it, and Roger says, hi. Kathy, she answers, I hear you tried to kill my husband the other night. Roger answers, yeah, well, I got carried away. Kathy, she responds, yeah, I hear they're gonna have to put in a whole new ceiling. Roger to this says, I figured Ricky owed me some dough and I had to spend it on something. Can I come in? Kathy answers, yeah. Roger, he then has some flowers that he gives her. Clearly, this is the beginning of a relationship between these two. Stray Bullets, Issue 18, Sex and Violence, Part 2. This is another Amy Racecar issue, and in this one, it's a very crime noir vibe. Amy Racecar is some sort of private investigator taking on various cases. And I found this particular Amy Racecar issue very difficult to get through, and I didn't really enjoy it. And because these Amy Racecar issues are kind of imaginary stories that don't really matter and don't further the overall narrative, I'm just going to skip it and move on to the next issue. So, the next issue is Stray Bullets issue 19, Live Nude Girls. This issue is set in June of 1982. As the issue opens up, we see a man named Jack. It is his wedding. He kisses his bride. He seems very happy. Although, as Jack looks out in the crowd of people, he notices someone. He notices an attractive woman he's never seen before. That woman is Amelia. Jack, he is almost caught in a trance. We now jump back months earlier. We are going to be building back up to this moment. We see some of Amelia's past relationships and how she quickly bounces from man to man and seemingly almost sabotages her relationships. She dated a guy named Steven, but they yelled all the time and eventually they broke up. At the restaurant she works at as a waitress, she met a man named Lee, and soon they started dating. They had about a 3-week whirlwind romance. One time when they were on vacation, Lee was looking at another woman, and this caused Amelia to almost cry later. Lee, he tried to explain it. Come on, Amelia. This is our last day on our trip. Can't we at least try to have a good time? I thought we worked everything out last night. This isn't about that girl at the beach. I didn't even realize I looked at her. I'm a guy. A beautiful girl walks by and my head turned. Women are beautiful, Amelia. That's the way God made them. Amelia says, you weren't just looking. Lee responds, what's that supposed to mean? You're the one I want. I love you. That was the first time that Lee told Amelia that he loved her. About a week or so after that, Amelia brought Lee over to her friend Tony's place. Tony's a woman here. And they were having a nice chat that night. At one point, Amelia and Lee went into the kitchen, and Amelia said, hey Lee, do you think Tony's pretty? Lee responded, let's not get into that again. But Amelia pushes, no, she's my friend. I just want you to answer honestly. Purely an objective judgment. Lee admits, yeah, she's pretty. Amelia then says, would you sleep with her? Lee says, Jesus Christ. Amelia tells him, cause if you want to, it's okay. She's my friend and I know you want to. Lee says, I love you. Amelia replies, I know and I want you to be happy. I'm gonna run out for a while. If you want to get with Tony, it'll be easy. She's expecting it. I told her you would. So Amelia, she left, and then she kind of set the stage for Lee to hit on her friend Tony. And when he did, Tony, she rejected him because this was not discussed before, and she's not that kind of girl. And then when Tony told Amelia later, Amelia dumped Lee. Which all sounds pretty toxic. She basically pushed her boyfriend to try and pursue her friend, and when he did, she dumped him. We soon learn that there is just something in Amelia's head that makes her pursue men. She wants them to want her, to love her, and she chases after them hard, entices them and brings them in, but once they're in, she dumps them. We now catch back up to the wedding we saw at the beginning of this issue. The brand new husband, Jack, he spots Amelia from across the way. Eventually, Jack goes out to use the restroom, and that is when Amelia talks with him for the first time. She says, congratulations, it was a lovely wedding. Louise was quite beautiful. Jack says, thanks, I'm a lucky guy. Amelia says, I think she's pretty lucky too. You're the most handsome man I've ever met. She then asks him, what does he do for work? He says, I'm an illustrator. Amelia then grabs his arm and says, cool beans, an artist. This is Jack's wedding day, and he's talking to this mysterious woman for what seems like an hour just outside the reception. At one point, Amelia's friend, Tony, comes out and sees her talking to Jack. Amelia says, Jack is a very talented artist. Tony says, yeah, I know, I've seen his drawings. Amelia tells Jack, I can't wait to see them. Tony, why don't you go back in? We'll be along in a few minutes. Jack then tells Amelia about some of the cartoons and projects he's working on. Amelia gushes, I like listening to you talk. You have such a passion for it. You'll be famous one day, I know it. And then I'll say I knew you when. Jack, he says, one thing at a time. Commercial work pays really well. I can't ask Louise to starve while I try and become a real artist and pursue my passions. Amelia says, I'm sure she wouldn't mind. I wouldn't. Jack admits Louise isn't really interested in my art. It's just a job to her. Amelia replies, "That's so sad. I'm sure she'll come around. I wish I had someone creative like you and handsome. Do you have a twin? Your wife's very lucky. I'd trade places with her in a second. If she ever gets tired of you, let me know." I know it's not fair to say this, but I wish you didn't just get married. I wish we were meeting somewhere else, in a bar, on a park bench, on a cruise in the Caribbean, anywhere but here. They talk some more, and eventually Jack's going to go back inside to the reception, while Amelia's going to retire to her room. Before they part ways, though, they kiss. And Jack couldn't have enough, so he ends up going back up to Amelia's hotel room, and there they make love. Afterwards, Amelia tells him, "Jack, I want you to know I don't want to come between you and Louise. I won't cause you any trouble. I'll treasure this short time. Always. You better go." As Jack is leaving, he says, "I love you, truly." He just met this girl. He's saying he loves her, but that is the draw that she has. And just as Jack is about to head out, Amelia's friend Tony enters the hotel room and sees them. Jackie then quickly exits. Tony tells her friend, "What the hell was that about? Boy, you really work fast, don't you? You're sick. How could you do this on their wedding day? Oh my god, I know you're messed up over Lee, but aren't you ashamed of yourself?" We then have a 3-page montage of Amelia doing this with many other men, pursuing them, making them love her, and then dumping them. Amelia is having lunch with her friend Tony, and she explains to her, the men, they have a good time, no one gets hurt. In fact, they all feel like kings. Tony asks, "What do you get out of all this?" Amelia answers, "I get to be perfect in their eyes, and it's not just about sex either. Most of them I just spend a few hours or an afternoon with. It's more like a great tragic romance, and I'm Juliet. It's perfect and unspoiled." 2 days later, Amelia is in a record store, and there she runs into the cop, Roger. We first met Roger in issue 17. In that issue, Roger just met the woman Kathy, who was Ricky Fish's girlfriend at the time. Well, Roger has since married Kathy and is deeply in love with her. So in this record store, Amelia bumps into Roger, and she starts to pursue him. She's flirting with him, asking what record he's buying. Roger's thinking of buying a Madonna album for his daughter. Roger asks, "Do you think that she'll like it?" Roger himself, he usually listens to the classics, the old standards like Gershwin or Ella Fitzgerald. Amelia, she laughs and says, "Oh, I think it's great. I wish the guys I met were more like that. You're special. I can tell it's hard to find a person like that." Roger replies, "No kidding. If I told you the story of how my wife and I met, you wouldn't believe it." Amelia responds, "Damn, the good ones are always married." Later on, outside of the record store, Roger is eating lunch at a restaurant. And Amelia, she walks by and says, "Hey, you mind if I join you?" Roger, surprised, says, "Oh, sure, sit." Amelia says, "My girlfriend was supposed to meet me, but she ditched out. It's kinda lonely eating by yourself." Roger responds, "It depends. It's good when you got a paper to read, or sometimes you want to think about stuff." Amelia says, "Thinking about stuff, it reminds me how lonely I am." Roger offers to set Amelia up with his friend Puncher. Amelia to this says, "I doubt he's like you. I could really go for a guy like you, Roger. Would you like to spend the afternoon with me?" Roger says, No, I couldn't." Amelia says, "Don't be nervous. I totally respect that you love your wife. I'd never come between that." Roger says, No, I'd never disrespect my wife like that. I wouldn't want to." Amelia to this says, "Hey, Jesus, I'm not asking for your whole life. No one's gonna know." Roger to this says, "Yeah, but I'd know. Look, lady, I don't know what your game is." Amelia, not used to rejection, says, "My game? What's yours? I'm sitting here practically telling you I love you and you spit in my face. Do you just want to sleep with me? Is that it?" Roger to this says, "Okay, honey, relax. Just so you know, I'm a cop." Amelia says, "What? You think I'm a whore that I'm propositioning you?" Roger tells her, "I think you're mixed up, and I think you're embarrassing yourself here, and you'd better calm down right now." Amelia to this says, "You're either too stupid to know a good thing when you see it, or you're a repressed homo. and you can take your holier-than-thou cop attitude and stick it you know where. You're no different than any of the other jerks. 3 nights later, at Amelia's waitressing job, the owner of the restaurant fires her, saying, "This isn't your private dating service. I've had 2 different wives complain." Amelia says, "The guy just asked me to have a drink." The owner says, "I saw you talking to that man earlier with your bathroom shenanigans. I've warned you before about this. People are starting to talk. I have to let you go." And after this, Amelia decides to become a stripper, where she can attain regular access to the kind of men she likes to pursue. One of those men she does pursue is, of course, Hank, whom we saw dating Amelia in issue 16. But once again, Amelia broke Hank's heart. Stray Bullets, issue 20, Motel. This issue is set in August 1986. A university professor named Philip is going to a motel with his student, Rachel. They are having an affair. Philip is married. They check into the motel and head to their room. The man working the counter at the motel is Frank, whom we first saw in Stray Bullets, issue 1. As soon as Philip and Rachel check in, Frank gets on the phone with someone and says, "They're here, yeah, like I said. Tell Harry he can count on me." Inside the motel room, Rachel appears to have gotten Philip flowers. It is his birthday. Philip thanks Rachel but says, "You know I can't bring them home." Rachel, she tells Philip, I know, it's just unfair. I wish we could be together all the time. I wish we didn't have to sneak around like this on alternate Tuesday and Thursday nights." Rachel does say, "I understand though, believe me darling, I do. I'm not asking you to leave her, I know what it would do to your reputation. Anyway, this is our time now. I don't want to think about her. I don't want you to mention her name." Rachel then starts kissing Philip, and then she goes to dress in something sexier. While she is changing, Philip seems to be having second thoughts about continuing this affair. He says to himself, I love my wife. Philip then starts saying to Rachel, who's changing in the bathroom, now Rachel, you don't want me. Look at me. I'm an old fart. There are plenty of young guys who'd love to be with you. The truth is, I love my wife. She's been a wonderful, loyal, caring woman for 20 years of marriage, and if she found out about this, I'm afraid that it would kill her. You're an incredible girl. Bright, talented, smart, and beautiful. You're gonna find the perfect fella for you one day. Someone who will treat you special like you deserve. Not some old, used-up man like me. Rachel, she comes back in from the bathroom, dressed in lingerie. Philip is a little bit shocked by the outfit. He asks Rachel if they can talk, but Rachel, she just jumps on Philip, and then she blindfolds him. She then also ties his arms to the bedposts, and she turns on the radio. She whispers in his ear, don't be a naughty boy, just do what I say. Do you think I'm sexy? Philip answers, yes. She asks, do you want me? He answers, I can't see, Rachel, please. Rachel continues, shh, don't speak. Rachel, she then starts having her way with Philip and making him all hot. But in the middle of their lovemaking, she gets on the phone and she phones Philip's wife, Cynthia. Rachel, she asks Philip, you want to please me? Tell me how good it feels. Philip replies, it feels so good. All of a sudden, Cynthia picks up the phone. Cynthia then hears her husband saying, it feels like heaven. Rachel, she asks Philip, you ever felt this good, Philip? Philip says, no. Rachel, and I'm the best? Philip, yes, you're the best. There's no one better than you. Rachel, tell me you love me. Philip, I love you. Rachel, say you want me. Philip, you know I do. Rachel, say it. Philip, I want you. You're the best. Rachel, say my name and tell me you love me. Philip, oh Rachel, you're the greatest. I want you oh so bad. Oh God, Rachel. Rachel, she asks, and you love me? Philip answers, I love you. All throughout this conversation, Cynthia was hearing this over the phone. Cynthia then hears Philip saying, I love you, Rachel. You're the best. Rachel says, better than your wife? Better than Cynthia? Tell me. Say it. Philip answers, yes. Oh, better than Cynthia. So much better. Oh, you're the best. I love you, Rachel. Finally, once they are done and everything is quiet, Cynthia on the phone says, "Philip?" Finally, Philip understands what is happening. That Rachel phoned his wife so that she would overhear all of this? Philip starts getting angry. He starts forcing his way out of the blindfold and the bedpost he's tied to. Once he's free, he asks, "What did you do? What did you do? Did you call my wife? Do you have any idea what you've done?" Rachel, a little scared, says, No, nothing. I was just, I didn't do anything. It was a joke. I really didn't do it." Cynthia at home is now talking to herself, saying, "I knew you were like this when I married you. I knew it. But I convinced myself you'd stop. After all the therapy and the marriage counseling, all the time, the years, I thought it was over. You're 50 years old, Philip. When do you grow up? What is it? Working at that school? All those young college girls? Are they so infatuated? Do they throw themselves at you that you just can't resist? You bastard." All of a sudden, Philip phones his wife back, and he pretends like nothing happened. He says, "Hey, honey, it's me. Yes, listen, dear, the queerest thing happened. I blew out 2 tires on that stretch of Double Trouble Road. I've been walking 45 minutes to get to a payphone here. I know it's far, but could you come pick me up?" Cynthia, seemingly wanting to believe the lie, says, "The car broke down?" Philip says, "Yeah, pretty bad luck, huh? Could you come and get me?" Cynthia replies, "I could." Philip says, "Great. There's a diner across the street here, the Sunshine Diner. I'll get a cup of coffee and meet you there. And wear something nice. We'll go into town and have dinner." Cynthia replies, "Oh, I'll be there soon." Maybe Cynthia knows it's a lie, or maybe she could believe in her head that it was just some weird prank phone call, and it wasn't her husband having an affair. Well, anyway, she's gonna come and meet Philip at the diner. Philip, he starts getting dressed. He's gonna leave the motel. But just before he finally leaves Rachel, there's a knock at the door. And into the hotel room walk Frank, Monster, and another enforcer of Harry's named Blue Ed. Blue Ed looks pretty freaking gnarly, like he's like Frankenstein or something. Why is his forehead so massive? Monster, he then talks with Philip, saying, "Are you Professor Philip Wallace, teacher of numerical analysis and multivariable calculus at the university? You have a wife named Cynthia and 2 kids, 15 and 19, a boy and a girl?" Philip says yes, he is that man. Philip asks if this guy is threatening him. Monster says, "Right now I'm threatening you and your whore. It appears obvious your wife and children are suffering enough. The man I work for has a document, a ledger, written in a mathematical code. You will read it for him." Philip, he just wants to get out of here. He's desperate to go meet his wife Cynthia at the diner so that he can smooth things over with her. If he doesn't show up, she's gonna know that he was cheating on her. Monster tells Philip to sit down. He is going nowhere. When Philip says, "I have to get out of here," Monster clocks him in the face. Rachel, feeling incredibly guilty for potentially ruining Philip's marriage, says, "You can keep me. Let him go and meet his wife, and I'll stay here with you as collateral." Monster says no. Rachel tells Monster, "Come on, be nice. Nobody wants to get hurt." Monster grabs Rachel's hand and seemingly snaps her wrist. Philip charges at Monster and hits him with the phone. Monster quickly gets things under control once again. Blue Ed comes back into the motel room and tells Monster that Harry wants to speak with him on the phone. So Monster heads out and tells Blue Ed to watch them. When Monster heads off, Blue Ed tells Rachel and Philip, "Ooh, he's mad. That's bad for you." Rachel tells Blue Ed, "Your friend is very intimidated by women." Blue Ed to this says, "Yeah, but I ain't. That's why they bring me along." "What? Did you put the moves on him? You want to try that with me?" "Careful. I know what to do with my meat." Philip, he rushes and attacks Blue Ed. They fall to the floor. Rachel, she attempts to strangle Blue Ed from behind. The pistol in Blue Ed's suit pocket falls out. They all continue wrestling and struggling. Philip yells for Rachel to grab the gun. Blue Ed starts choking out Philip. Rachel, she manages to grab the gun and she shoots twice. Blam, blam. And she seemingly kills Blue Ed. She then says, "Is he dead? I think he's still alive." Philip replies, "Let's go. They'll be here any second." Rachel and Philip soon leave the motel and start trying to run away. Frank from the motel room window, though, shoots Philip in the back. Rachel, she then returns fire. Frank yells out to Monster, "I hit the guy. They ran in by the trees over there. Blue Ed's in bad shape." Monster tells Frank to put him in the car. Rachel and Philip, they start heading to the trees. Monster heads after them with a shotgun. Rachel, she's continuing to try and help Philip get away. Philip tells Rachel, "Leave me. Get away from here." Rachel tells Philip, "I think about Cynthia. She needs you." Frank, he put Blue Ed in the car, and then he lit the motel on fire. Frank then yells out for Monster, "Everything's set. We should go." Monster, he was still searching for Rachel and Philip, but with the motel on fire, the cops will be here soon, so they have to end their search and leave. Monster, Frank, and Blue Ed leave in the car. Once they're gone, Rachel drags Philip to his car, and then they too drive off. Philip, bleeding out in the car, says, "What am I gonna tell her? What am I gonna tell Cynthia?" Rachel replies, "Shh, don't speak. Just hang on. It'll be okay. It's gonna be okay." And as they continue speeding off away from the burning motel, the cops head back in the other direction. Stray Bullets issue 21, Little Love Tragedy. This issue is set in January of 1984. Chronologically speaking, this is after issue 17 when Roger starts dating Kathy, but before issue 15 when Benny and his wife Janet have their massive argument after Janet has been constantly cheating on Benny. So when the issue opens up, the cop, Roger, is with his new wife, now Kathy, and they are having a dinner party with Benny and his wife, Janet. As Benny and Roger chat in the living room, Benny expresses his desire to be single again. He fantasizes about all the women he could be with. He admits that he has sometimes fantasized about his wife, Janet, dying. He says, "Lately I've begun to think about what if, Janet died, like she got cancer or was shot by some maniac or a robber or something. It would tear me up and rip out my guts, but then I think about the possibilities that open up." Moments later, Janet and Kathy enter the room, and they all sit down for dinner. During dinner, Benny starts making all sorts of comments that are very complimentary to Roger's wife, Kathy. He tells Kathy, "You're always so sweet, Kathy. How could anybody look at that sweet face and be mean? You'd think they'd all fall in love with you." Roger, hearing this, is, yeah. Kathy talks of a confrontation she had in the mall a week ago and how she almost got in a fight with some guy. Benny says, "He almost hit you? Who would dare lay a finger on a pretty girl like you?" While they are having dinner, all of a sudden Janet, she starts choking on some food. She's choking and choking. Roger and Kathy attempt to help Janet, but Benny, he just stares out into space. All of a sudden, Janet coughs up the food. Roger seemingly stares at Benny and wonders why he didn't act. As the night goes on, Roger keeps getting weird vibes off of Benny. Kathy, she brought a blueberry pie to the dinner, and when Benny was eating it, he is in love with this pie. He says, "Oh, I love a good pie. Janet likes ice cream, but me, nothing beats pie." Kathy starts talking about all the pies she makes: apple, lemon meringue, banana cream, cherry. Benny jokes, "Honey, we're booked here all next week for dinner." Kathy whispers to Benny, "Psst, I'll slip you an extra slice to take home." As the dinner keeps going, Roger keeps getting more and more fed up with Benny seemingly hitting on his wife. At one point, Roger asks his wife Kathy to join him in the kitchen. In the kitchen, Roger starts yelling at his wife, saying, "You're making me look like an idiot. I'm embarrassed to even be here." The yelling starts getting more and more heated, and then eventually Roger, he punches his wife. Kathy falls to the kitchen floor. Benny, he runs into the kitchen to defend Kathy. He asks, "What the hell happened here?" Roger, he says, She fell. I tried to grab her and she fell backwards." Benny tells Roger, I think you better go cool off, Roger. And Kathy, she's gonna be staying with us tonight. Roger yells, she's not going anywhere with you. Benny tells Roger to calm down. Roger yells, get your hands off me, I'll run you in. Roger then tells the girls, he's after you, Kathy, and he was thinking about killing you, Janet, so he could fall in love with lots of other girls. Benny tries to stop Roger from talking. Roger yells, get your hands off me. He swings at Benny. Benny dodges, and Benny punches Roger in the face. The girls are yelling for Roger to stop. Roger tells Benny, you're not screwing my wife tonight. Benny tells his wife, Janet, help Kathy get her stuff together. Soon Benny and Roger continue fighting in the kitchen. Roger grabs a kitchen knife and he attempts to stab Benny with it, hitting him right in the chest. But Benny, he grabs a pot and swings at Roger in the face. The next day, Kathy has indeed come to stay over at Benny and Janet's place. She is staying there with her daughter, Janie. As the weeks draw on, Benny, Janet, and Kathy and Janie are becoming all the more closer, like a family. One night, Benny wakes up in the middle of the night. He goes to the bathroom and he overhears Kathy crying in her room. Benny goes to check in on her. Kathy tells him, I can never repay you. You've been so supportive. I don't know what to do. Kathy, she then kisses Benny and she tells him, I've fallen in love with you, Benny. Benny tells her, listen to me, stop. You're not thinking clearly. You've been through an ordeal. You don't want this. Kathy replies, I feel so strongly. I love you more than anything I've ever loved in my life. Take me, Benny. Benny rejects this advance, saying, look, you're an amazing woman. You're smart, you're warm and talented, you're beautiful. If I was single, you wouldn't get 2 paces. I'd snatch you up in a second. The truth is, I love you too, as a friend. I hope we can always maintain that strong bond. I think we have, but as friends, I have a wonderful wife. A few days go by. Janet, she starts getting sick. A few days later, she goes to the hospital. They're going to have to operate. She has a tumor. Time goes by. Janet, she has an operation. The operation is a success, but she has somehow lost her hair. Kathy is continuing to fall deeper in love with Benny, but they do not act on their love. Later, one night, Roger breaks into Benny and Janet's home. He has a gun. He's gonna shoot them, but the alarm goes off. Roger takes a couple of shots, but then he starts running away. Benny chases after him. Benny continues chasing after Roger by his car. Roger shoots Benny in the shoulder. Benny tackles Roger. He then says, you're a sick, evil man. Roger replies, yeah, no jail will hold me, Benny. I'll be back to finish you and those 2 little strumpets of yours. The only way to stop me is to kill me. Benny managed to wrestle the gun away from Roger. He tells him, you're never gonna hurt anyone ever again. Benny, he's debating whether he should shoot and kill Roger, but he is not a killer. He tells Roger, you're going to jail. Roger, seemingly growing insane, says, ha 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 ha! Oh, that hurts. After all, we used to be such good friends. Benny tells him, you're insane. Roger replies, of course I am. Evil too, ha ha ha! I love being evil. Some sirens can be heard in the distance. The cops will be here soon. As Benny is distracted, Roger grabs a screwdriver and he stabs it into Benny's chest. Benny, still with the gun in his hands, puts it in Roger's mouth and shoots and kills him. Benny then passes out from the blood loss. Weeks later, Benny is in the hospital. He wakes up. Kathy is there. She tells Benny, shh, lay back. It was pretty touch and go for a while, but the doctor says you'll be all right. Benny asks what happened to Roger. Kathy explains that Roger is dead, and Benny saved them all. Benny asks, and Janet? Kathy breaks the news, saying, I'm sorry. We assume that Janet has passed away from her cancer. 2 weeks later, Benny's son Bobby asks Kathy, is Daddy okay? Kathy answers, he's going to be fine, honey. 2 months later, Benny is still seemingly withdrawn. Bobby asks again, is Daddy okay? Kathy answers, no, honey, he's out of his mind. Later that night, Kathy goes into Benny's bedroom wearing some negligee. She climbs on top of him, kisses him, and says, I know what you need. Benny replies, but Kathy, Janet, it's too soon. Kathy replies, before she died, Janet told me that she loved us both and wanted us to be together. She wanted me to cook pie for you and make you happy in every way. She said, life goes on. Benny, so happy, starts crying. Kathy tells Benny she wanted us to be happy. Benny replies, "Oh, Janet. Oh, Kathy." And then we take a pause from the story, and there's a twist. It is revealed to us now that all of this was just a dream. We go back to that dinner party many months ago. Janet is choking on her food, and Benny is staring into space. While his wife was choking, Benny imagined a whole fantasy life where Roger was a madman who attempted to kill him, and Kathy had to come move in with them, and Janet died and Kathy fell in love with him, and then they were finally together. But that was all just fantasy. But now in real life, once again, Janet, she spits out that food and doesn't die. Roger then tells Benny, "Benny, don't worry, she's going to be fine." And Benny then starts tearing up and says, "Sigh. The end." Final issue in this volume now. Stray Bullets, issue 22. Bring Home the Devil. A man named Charlie is with his wife Joanne at the airport. Joanne's mother is sick, so she is flying across the country to be with her. Meanwhile, Charlie is going to stay home. So they say goodbye and Joanne heads off. And Charlie, he heads back home. He is looking forward to being home alone, away from his wife. In fact, he looks at this as an opportunity to maybe finally get with another woman like he's always wanted to, but has never done before. Charlie, he goes to a bar that night to see if he can get lucky. Charlie's not very smooth with the ladies. In fact, he's pretty nervous to talk to any of them. At that bar there, he's people watching, checking out all the women. He spots Beth there. She's with Ricky Fish. Although Beth and Ricky don't seem to really be getting along. Charlie, he thinks Beth's pretty hot. He wants to try and talk with her, but he's so nervous he can't bring himself to do it. And all these other dudes keep approaching Beth throughout the night. Charlie watches Beth for a while and he never makes a move. And Beth, she goes home with some dude. The next night, Charlie returns to that bar and he watches Beth some more. Beth and Ricky Fish continue to seemingly be at odds, like Beth's trying to make him jealous. But Ricky Fish, he spots Amelia there in the bar and all of a sudden his interest is drawn to her. So Beth, she's forced to talk to these drunk losers at the bar. One of the drunk losers asks Beth, "Can I buy you a drink, Beth?" Beth replies, "Okay, you can buy me a drink, but then you have to leave." The drunk loser doesn't have much money though. He says, "Actually, could you lend me like $5, Beth?" Beth replies, "Ugh, next case." This is when Charlie finally decides to make a move. He walks over to Beth and says, "Excuse me, I'd like to buy you a drink." Beth looks at Charlie and replies, "Whoa, you speak. I thought you just sat in the corner and looked coy." Charlie, sweating, says, "I'd like a chance." Beth jokes, "They're coming out of the woodworks, Bert. Tonight it's this guy. Last night, someone I can't even remember who." The bartender laughs. Beth tells Charlie, "Relax, sport. Sit down. Buy me a drink." Charlie, he buys Beth a drink and he drinks some more himself. Beth tells Charlie, "So Charlie, are you ready?" Charlie asks, "What do I have to do?" Beth says, "Just keep up, Charlie, just keep up." As the night goes on, they get progressively more drunk, and then they leave the bar and start stumbling down the street. They're laughing. Charlie tells Beth, I live near here, we could go back to my place." Beth, she's not ready to go back to his place, though. She wants to have more fun. They kiss for a bit, and then Beth says she has an idea. Someone in the neighborhood they are in seems to be throwing a party right now. She drags Charlie, and the two of them walk inside and pretend they belong there. It's some old couple's 50th anniversary party. Charlie and Beth, they steal some food and they drink some of the beer there. Eventually, someone hosting the party says, "Excuse me, I'm sorry, but I don't think you were invited." Another guy tells Charlie, "Who the hell are you, buddy?" Charlie, drunk, trying to impress Beth, says, I'm the Duke." Beth starts laughing. Eventually, Beth shoves one of the partygoers, and then her and Charlie run the hell out of there. They run and they laugh, and they eventually make it back to Charlie's house. They're laughing inside. Charlie says, "Whew, I never ran so hard in all my life." Charlie asks Beth, did I keep up? Did I make the cut? Beth kisses him and says, you did all right. As the night progresses and Charlie continues to try and woo Beth, at some point his wife phones the house, and she leaves a message on the answering room machine saying, it's me. I guess you're asleep. I got an earlier flight, so I'll be in about 7 a.m. If I don't see you, I'll take a cab. Charlie and Beth, they talk some more. Beth, she asks, listen, Charlie, would it be okay if I stayed over? Charlie tells her, yeah, of course. Charlie then starts kissing Beth and trying to make out with her. Beth says, whoa, relax, sport. Charlie, thinking they were going to have sex, asks, what's the problem? Beth says, no problem. Do you have a problem? Charlie answers, no, I just thought I wanted to. Beth says, I know what you thought, but what's the hurry? The world's not ending. Charlie, he admits, it is for me. My wife comes home tomorrow. I suppose you and I could meet up at a hotel or something, but it's been such a good night so far. Beth, a little offended, says, look, despite the fact that you just made me feel like a $3 Coke whore, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt because you're drunk. Just get me a blanket and some pillows and I'll crash her on the sofa and I'll be gone before you get up and that'll be that. Charlie says, what? Beth says, you don't want to be cheating on your wife? Charlie says, I do, I really do. Charlie then murmurs to himself, shit, I can't believe it. I waited 10 years for this and I could have just got a hooker. Beth, she doesn't care that Charlie's not getting any. She says, okay, well, live and learn. So can I get a blanket? Beth, she wants to crash here for the night. Charlie says, you can't stay here. Beth replies, be a sport, okay? Charlie angry says, you be a sport. I mean, what's the big deal? You said it yourself. Get the hell out of here. Beth, now annoyed, says, no. Charlie asks, excuse me? Beth, she says, you know what? I think I'll wait here till your wife comes home. She and me need to have a little talk. Beth then seems very satisfied with herself. Charlie says, look, don't be childish. Come on. I'm sorry, I lost my head. My plans didn't go the way I thought, but it's not in any way your fault. But I would really like to be alone now, please. Beth, she doesn't care. She's not going anywhere. Charlie admits, it took me 10 years to get up the courage to try to cheat on my wife once. You know where I met my wife? In church, okay? And I didn't even ask her out. She asked me out. Give me a break, okay? You can even crash here like you wanted, and I'll get up early and drive you home, okay? Is it a deal? Beth says, no. Charlie asks, why not? Beth says, you pissed me off. Charlie angry says, you're just a cock tease. No wonder you end up with a different guy every night. You probably hate men. Beth answers, no sport, just the lying, cheating, married ones. All those other guys I slept with, just not you. Charlie angry says, well then for your info, then I do think you're a whore. Beth says, well then that settles it then. I was thinking of letting you off the hook. Charlie says, you were? I take it back, I'm sorry. Beth, she continues, nope. Charlie sad says, but I take it back. Beth says, all of a sudden you're really starting to sicken me. Charlie, frustrated, begins trying to wrestle Beth, trying to strong-arm her to get her outside. But Beth punches him in the face and kicks him in the shin, and Charlie steps back. He's distraught now. He says, you bitch, you goddamn bitch. Beth, not caring, says, keep it up, sport. Charlie says, please, I'm begging you. Please, I'll give you money. You gotta go, please. You can take stuff, the VCR, the jewelry. Beth, she says, just relax. Catch some sleep. Maybe I'll feel differently in the morning. Charlie asks, you think so? Beth answers, no. Charlie starts crying, oh my god, oh my god. Beth, she's really amusing herself. She then looks at the TV and notices that Charlie was watching all this porn. She laughs, Charlie, is this what you do all day? Charlie, he goes into his bedroom and he writes his wife a note saying, I'm sorry for what I have done to you, to our marriage, and to the sacred trust we've held between us. I love you, Charlie. Charlie then grabs a gun and puts it in his mouth, but he hears Beth laughing, and he then takes it out. He walks back into the living room and asks Beth, I'm giving you one more chance to get out. He then points the gun at Beth, saying, get out! Beth isn't scared. She says, Charlie, you're really falling to pieces. Charlie yells, shut up, you skanky bitch! Beth, she finally sits up and says, all right, I'll go. Charlie, though, continues pointing the gun at Beth and says, don't move. You had your chance, now I'm pissed off. All I wanted was to have a good time. I love my wife, I really do. We've been married 10 years and I never even flirted with another woman. I just wanted to swing wild, to just go a little crazy just once in my life. Maybe I was wrong, but no one was going to be hurt by it. Do you know how many married couples cheat? Don't know any that don't. For all I know, my wife's balling a used car salesman 3 nights a week. I just wanted one night, a little sex. That's all. Beth asks, so you want to have sex? Charlie replies, I'm going to kill you. Beth replies, sex is better. Charlie, I don't think you want to do this. You'll ruin your life. Charlie yells, you already ruined it. As soon as my wife walks through that door, it's over. Beth says, well then let me leave. Charlie replies, I can't trust you. Beth says, come on, trust me. Charlie tells her, maybe if you beg. Beth replies, well, I'm not gonna beg. You know, you're gonna have to kill a lot more than just me. All those people in the bar, those folks at the party too. That's a lot of people. Charlie realizes Beth is right. He says, oh, what am I gonna do? Beth then tells Charlie, I wasn't gonna tell you this, but I think your wife already knows or will soon. She must have hired a private detective or someone to keep an eye on you. There's been a Ford car that's been tailing us all night. Go, look outside. I noticed him when we left the bar, but I didn't think anything of it. Charlie, he looks out the window and he, sure enough, sees a car parked out there. Someone is sitting in the car. Charlie thinks that maybe Beth is right. He puts the gun in his mouth again, ready to commit suicide. Beth stops Charlie and says, Christ, that's the last thing I need. You're not thinking, relax. There's a solution. What time is it? Charlie answers, almost 5 o'clock, I think. Oh man, it's over. My wife probably already knows. I have to kill myself. Will you have sex with me before I kill myself? Beth responds, now you're really freaking out. Charlie, listen to me. I don't think the guy outside is watching you. I think he's watching me. I'm involved with some pretty rough people. Have you ever heard of the Blue Spice Crips? I sell drugs for them, and their leader's a dude named Big Fat King Blue. He's a big black guy, about 6'4", 400 pounds at least. A mean mofo. And I'm his bitch. Yeah, he smacks me around a bit, but mostly it's okay. We got in a big fight and I walked out, and I guess he put a man on me. I said all that stuff so you wouldn't kick me out until the sun came up, you know? That'll be soon, and then I'll go. He's a very jealous type. But I'll tell him that I was selling you shit. Anyway, I have the gun, so that's what we're doing. Charlie, he is buying this story. Beth, she then puts on some makeup, and then she heads outside. Before Beth heads down the driveway, she tells Charlie, well, goodbye, and she kisses him. And then she says, Charlie, pull yourself together. Learn a lesson. The risk is so much higher than the reward. Treat your wife a little better. You never know what you're gonna bring home. Beth, she smiles and continues walking down the street. Charlie slams the door behind her. Beth, she then starts walking down the street. And the Ford car that was parked outside, it is not connected to Beth's insane made-up story about some Blue Spice Crips gang. It is instead her off-again, on-again boyfriend, Ricky Fish. Ricky drives the car beside Beth and asks, I hope you had a good time. Beth answers, I did. Ricky annoyed says, it didn't take you very long. Beth replies, you didn't have much of a struggle either. Ricky to this says, you talking about that girl in the bar that I was talking to? Come on, I was just mad. Get in the car. Look, I'm sorry. I went overboard, okay? I'm sorry. I was wrong. Ricky then starts kind of apologizing, saying, look, I deserve it. Beth tells him, yeah. Ricky asks, did you sleep with him? Beth just blows us off, saying, pfft. Ricky, he continues trailing behind Beth, saying, hey, hey! And Beth just smiles and ignores him. And with this, we end Volume 3 of Stray Bullets, Other People. Okay, so that was volume 3. Let me go through my thoughts on the various storylines in this one. So the first issue, that is the one where we see Virginia and Beth, and they're now in Los Angeles. We're mostly following Virginia this issue and see the various friends she has made, this kid Bobby, and we see her hanging out with Bobby, and eventually Virginia's hiding out in Bobby's house, and then she witnesses the affair that Janet is having on her husband Benny with all these other guys. That's kind of amusing stuff, and then it kind of explodes at the end of that issue where Benny and Janet's lover are all fighting, and then they see Virginia and they almost kill her, but then Beth saves her at the last minute. So yeah, I thought this was a very fun issue, and lots of amusing stuff happened. The issue after that is the issue where we see Hank and his adventures, and I really like that. He has a near-death experience. He kills this guy in self-defense, and he realizes how quickly his life came to ending. So now he's going to live his life to the fullest, and he does this by doing lots of drugs and having sex, cheating on his wife, having various affairs, and some of it was really funny. The one line which I really laughed is when he's trying to have sex with his hooker and they're trying to do cocaine and he asks her, "You don't have any?" And she says, "No, I thought you had it." And he says, "What? You're the hooker here. Why don't you have the cocaine?" I don't know. It was funny. But in the end, he falls in love with this Amelia girl, and Amelia breaks his heart. And all of a sudden, Hank, he reverts back to his old ways where he's not very confident. So all in all, I really like that issue. The next one was the Ricky Fish issue, which I did not think was that great. Just I don't know. There was a little bit of tension where Ricky's wife Kathy is in her apartment, and then all these people come in, these cops, and you're starting to initially you're fearing for Kathy's life, that these cops might be up to something, but in the end, not much really happens there. They eventually talk a lot and they leave, and then this Roger comes back and he sort of starts a relationship with this Kathy, and Kathy breaks up with her boyfriend. I don't know, not a great issue. Then we had the Amy race car issue, and I did not like it. I skipped over it in this video. These Amy race car issues are sometimes a real drag, and I wish they would not exist sometimes. Like, they really just drag the story down, and yeah, they would have been better off without as many of them as there are. All right, the next issue after that was the Amelia issue, where we really learn a lot about her. And I found some of it to be pretty interesting, where we see she's just drawn to these men and she wants them to love her. And once they do, and once they're kind of ready to commit to her, that's when she sort of loses interest and breaks up with them. And this like horrific cycle repeats itself. So I think it was an interesting character study on her, but I don't really think the issue worked as a whole. And where it ended up in the end, where she becomes a stripper, I don't know. So not the best story. After that one, we had the one about the mathematician professor having an affair in a motel room, and I did like the scene where he's having an affair there, and they're having intercourse, and the woman he's with phones this guy's wife and has her overhear everything. So that was really amusing. And then I'm like, how is he going to get out of this? But then it diverts to this craziness where Monster and Blue Ed come in and they want this guy to do stuff for them, and gunfighting ensues. So kind of interesting stuff, but it really went off the rails in that issue. The next one was probably one of my favorite issues in this one. It's the one where Benny and Roger are having a dinner with their wives, and Benny, he daydreams about his wife dying, but he dreams of her dying in such a way where he has no guilt and he can continue on to other relationships. And I thought it was funny that the issue, it progresses so long into this fantasy life where Roger tries to attack him and becomes insane, and Benny has to fight him off, and then eventually Janet dies, and he's with this Kathy person, and there's this long story. And when you're reading it, I'm like, what's going on here? This story is pretty wild. And then at the end, it's revealed that it was all just Benny's dream. And we go back to when they're having dinner, and the wife spits out the food. And yeah, and once I read that twist come, I was like laughing for several minutes. That's what was happening. The realization that it was all just a dream was really funny to me. The last issue in this volume is the one where Beth hooks up with this guy, and they're at this bar, and she talks to him about, he wants to really cheat on his wife, and Beth doesn't want to. And I thought it was really amusing how Beth was just like, nah, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to stay here until your wife comes back to teach you a lesson, in a way. And the escalations of that were pretty funny. Now, the issue maybe didn't end in the most spectacular way, but yeah, all in all, it wasn't too bad. So overall, this volume was maybe not as good as the first two volumes to me. I still thought it was pretty strong, though, and I enjoyed a lot of it. So I'm going to give this volume an 8 out of 10. Thank you all for watching, and I will be back in the future with volume 4, which takes a more darker turn, where we see various goings-ons with Virginia and this new Bobby friend she made, as that's going to be a real focus in the next one.